So here's the thing, we have new mics on that we're trying out.
Check.
Check. Can I talk in yours?
Check.
Mic check. Oh, is yours up?
I mean, so normally we say, welcome back to the channel. I feel like this is a little bit different. Do we still say welcome back to the channel? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jess, this is Melissa. And today, you have hair in your mouth.
Welcome back to the channel. I'm Melissa and this is Jessica. Today, we are going to be talking about the fear of failure and how it's holding you back from everything you're doing in life. I have hair in my mouth. If you like, subscribe, turn the bell on, and comment on this video, you have the chance to win $25 gift card. Do you usually say that?
Yeah, you totally stole my thunder, but like I like that you just went with it.
I don't like when we have big gaps in filming because then I feel like I just forget everything.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this topic today because a lot of conversations that I've been having recently, like with women who are in our community, have revolved around, well, I failed everything, right? And then we're here trying to convince them to like toss aside everything you ever knew about dieting, find something that's a little bit more sustainable, that's something that feels more livable, eat more calories, pull back on cardio. Like, it's completely counterintuitive to everything you're taught. And they're like, well, it makes perfect sense, but I failed at everything else, and I'm just worried this is gonna be another example of something I fail at.
I was actually thinking about this the other day. When you look at the diet industry, all the nutrition coaches, even if they're good coaches, like no matter what it is, everyone is just like shoving down your throat, like you need to be eating food this way and exercising this way and get your steps in, drink your water, and like technically it's kind of all the same type of thing. But the gap that no one really talks about and that no one's really helping you with is the mindset side of things and overcoming failure and working through all the failure that you've had in the past with dieting. And the problem with this topic is that when you're overweight, when you're in pain, like when like you just want the weight off, like you've been unhappy for so long, you don't care about the mindset. You care about what is the diet that I'm gonna do that's gonna help me lose weight.
And it's not even just help me lose weight, it's do it as fast as possible. I was talking with someone yesterday and she was like, well, I really want a lifestyle, but I also really need to lose like 80 pounds as soon as possible. So whatever's gonna get me there soonest. And I'm like, well, do you want the lifestyle? Because that's gonna be way slower, or do you wanna get the 80 pounds off as quick as possible? And she was like, as quick as possible. And
right,
I was like,
but and that's the problem is that, and like this is where like you need to evaluate your words have to align with your actions. You can't say, I want the weight to come off as quick as possible and I want a lifestyle, because you can't really do both. Like turning this into a lifestyle and doing it, you know, sustainably and having that like livable diet plan does not equal like the weight's gonna drop off like this with, you know, other crash diets that you've done.
Right, and that's the problem too. Like when we are talking about failure, if you look at your track record of past diets, and all you're looking back at that and doing, well, I tried that one and maybe it worked, but then I gained the weight back. And I did that one, but I couldn't stick to it for longer than 2 weeks. And I tried that and I dropped, you know, thousands of dollars. And then within, you know, a week of going off of it, I gained all my weight back plus an additional 20 pounds. You're looking at that as like your track record of failure. And it makes sense, but you have to ask yourself, like, what is the common denominator in all of those things that actually cause you to fail? And for most women, it's the fact that it's not a sustainable diet. It's not a livable diet. So you're doing short-term things that you have to white knuckle through for a period of time, and you're able to do that. But then when that becomes unbearable, or the pain of not living your life outweighs the pain of your jeans not fitting, that's when like everything falls to shit and you just go back to your normal habits. And then you're like, well, I failed, there's something wrong with me, when really it's
honestly like this is like to give you a visual, it's almost like imagine a seesaw on a playground, right? And you're kind of like in like a little ball like in the center of it, and the seesaw keeps like going this way and you keep like rolling to this side of like get the weight off fast, like crash diet, and then you come back to the center and you're like, well, I want a lifestyle, I want something better, and then you like crash this way and you're like, nope, it's not fast enough. You just keep like going back and forth, and there's never just that like harmony where you're just losing weight and living your life. And that's the problem, and that's why you keep failing, and that's why you feel so stuck.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that when you're making your future decisions, or you're making forward-facing decisions, and the only thing that you are focused on is that whole list of failures, like in the back. I'm sorry, I don't know why I always put my hand in front of you. I feel like I need to like spatially and visually show things. When you're trying to make that forward-facing decision, but then the only thing that you're basing that forward decision on is your whole line of past failures, you are using failure as your lens to define like what is your next step forward. And that's a very scary place to be, because if you're letting failure define, am I going to move forward, or am I not going to move forward? That's what's keeping you stuck, because you're afraid to fail again. We've both been in that position where we've spent a lot of time and money and energy failing at diets and being frustrated and thinking we're the problem. But imagine if we had looked at all of our failures and then we never said, you know what, I'm going to put my trust in someone that's offering me a more sustainable option. And I'm going to try something that I've never done before. If we had never done that, number one, our lives would look completely different. And number two, we wouldn't be able to be carrying out this mission that we decided to carry out to help as many women as possible break free from traditional diet culture.
I think like the shift has to go from, you're driving down the road and you know the destination that you want, but you're looking in the rear view mirror to guide you there. Like that is essentially what you're doing when you're trying to get to that, livable diet, like a lifestyle diet, but all you're looking at is like everything that you have failed at in the past. And what you need to do is stop looking in that rearview mirror and like look at the big wide open windshield in front of you. There's so much possibility and you just can't see it because you're so focused on everything that you've done wrong in the past. This is kind of like what we want to talk about, is the whole idea of failure being such a defining factor in your identity and how you take actions moving forward.
I love this thought. And so this is like the purpose of this video, is to help you start to reimagine or redefine failure for yourself. And I love the story of Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx, the shapewear. I hope everyone knows what Spanx are. Right, especially if you're overweight. You're like, girl, I know what Spanx are. Are you kidding? I know. Those things are such a bitch to get on.
I literally can't do it. Here's what I felt like what happened when I put them on. I felt like it was almost like it pushes all like the blood flow, and then like your face, you just get like hot like up in your head because you just have everything like pushing, like constricting up to here, and it just feels awful.
I felt like you'd put it on and it would be like great, like everything's tight, but then like all the stuff below it is like, and all the stuff above it is like, and you're like,
it's awful. I mean, it's great, but like you have a nice pair of the leather Spanx I got you for Christmas.
Oh, those are nice. I'm saying like the shapewear.
Oh yeah, the shapewear.
Like the ones you wear under dresses. Then it's like I have a roll like a third boob or something like that. It's terrible.
My back and my side is just like a
side boob, back boob, third boob. I don't know. So Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, she has a very cool story. One thing that I never knew about her is that it took her almost 15 years to go from starting her business to becoming a billionaire, right? Like this amazing empire. But in starting her business, 15 years, she spent, I think, a solid 5 to 8 years, if I remember correctly, being told, no, your idea sucks, no one's gonna wanna do it. She was just told no, 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 no. And if you think about all of those roadblocks she hit, the fact that she was able to push past that for 5 years plus of being told, no, your idea sucks, no one's gonna want this, that's a long time. One of the things that she credits for her ability to keep pushing forward is that her father normalized failure for her from a young age. You know how when we were young, you'd come home from, school and we'd all be sitting at the dinner table and mom would be like, who'd you play with today? Who'd you sit with at lunch?
What happened today? And you told
dish.
Good thing.
And her dad, when they would sit down to dinner, would be like, Sarah, how did you fail today? Right? Like he point blank asked that question, how did you fail today? And if she never came with any stories of like, this is how I failed today, he would be like visibly disappointed, because to him that meant you weren't pushing your boundaries. You weren't pushing yourself to your furthest capabilities because you're not trying anything new. You're not pushing yourself to grow or learn or change. And so for her, she would always have to look for areas where she would push herself, ways that she would actually fail. So when she came home and sat down at dinner, she'd be able to tell her dad, this is how I failed today. And that was something that was normalized and celebrated.
Yeah, I love that, because I feel like it's something that is it's the complete opposite of how most people grow up. And like when you think back on, your own childhood, number one, like pretty much everything that you're dealing with right now has stemmed from something that's happened in your childhood,
For
right?
sure.
So if you are growing up with the idea of your parents are like maybe really hard on you, or they're really strict on like grades or like how you perform in school, how you did like playing sports, every time you fail or you don't do well, like they're disappointed.
Yep.
And you start to internalize that, and then that shows up in your adult life, and then every time you fail, it's like that disappointment and just kind of builds and builds and builds, and it's like this giant callus that you have like on your body of failure.
I am a failure.
I am a failure. And I think that like being able to normalize that from an early childhood is something that it just changes everything, because then you do look at failure as, what did I learn from this? It's not like I failed and oh my god, like I'm disappointed in myself, like so and so is disappointed in me. It's like, great, okay, I failed. It's data. What did I learn, and what can I do different next time?
Yeah.
And I think like you think about when you were in school and you took a test, the teacher didn't go over the right answers. The teacher would be like, okay, you know, the majority of people got this answer wrong. Like, let's go back and like understand like what the right answer was and like why you got it wrong. And you learn from that. And to be honest with you, like those were the answers that
You
stuck
never
with
forget,
you. Like you
yeah.
never forget those because you actually learned from it.
Yeah.
It was something that you failed at, and then you overcame, and now you know it.
I mean, our challenge to you would start thinking about failure not as like an abject failure, like I failed, period, it's the end of the line, like put a stamp on it, it's done. We need to start reframing failure, and Sarah Blakely actually uses this as, how can I make this better? And I love that because it takes away like that final like death sentence of failure, and it turns it into something that has opportunity, like you were saying, opportunity and possibility.
Yeah.
And when you can look at anything that doesn't go your way, you can look at failure through that lens instead of being like, well, I suck and it's done and like it's over, and I look at it through, okay, well that didn't go my way, how can I make it better? You give yourself the opportunity to learn and to grow and to evolve. And not only are you making the situation better, in taking all of that data, in taking, you know, that time to sit and reflect, you yourself are becoming a stronger, better version of you, because now you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
It really comes down to like your perspective on this, and I think that we can say this a million times, and maybe this will be the time where you're like, oh my god, like yes, like this makes sense, and I do need to start shifting my perspective on it. But whether you're with us or not, even if you are with us and you are doing all the right things, but then you have days where you do mess up, or like you go on vacation and like you didn't stick to your diet, or like something happens and you feel like a failure and you start to go down that rabbit hole. I want you to come back to this and to what we're saying and just think to yourself, okay, it's data to tell me like what went wrong, like what did I do wrong, and then, you know, like Jess said, like what works, what doesn't work, and then like how can I make it better in the future? Yeah. And then next time you go on vacation, next time you have a weekend out, next time you have like whatever happened, you're gonna be better at it because you're gonna remember what you failed at that time.
Taking it a step further to give you like a real life example, if we look at like weekends, right? Most women really struggle with weekends. It's when we're more social, we're more indulgent, you're either grabbing takeout or going out or having drinks with friends or your family or whatever it is. So in this case, right, you can be like, I did great all week, I stuck to my plan, and then the weekend came and I had all of these great intentions to, I'm going to log and track everything, and I'm not gonna drink, and I'm not gonna have any bread at the restaurant. You like build it up to be this big thing for yourself, and then you get there, like you're like, well, I didn't eat all day because, you know, I know I'm not supposed to do that, but I'm not gonna eat all day, and then I get there and I'm starving. And like that first glass of wine hits and you're like, well, that bread looks really good now. And then
Soft
you're like,
pretzel looks delicious.
yeah, and so you're just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have a little bit of bread, and then that turns into second glass of wine.
Yep.
Your kind of inhibitions are lowered,
Yep.
You're feeling good, and then you just like, you blow it. So then you get home Saturday night, you're disappointed. Sunday morning you wake up, the scale's up, and you're like, fuck, I did it again. It wasn't supposed to go this way. I failed. I might as well just keep it going and I'll start again Monday. That's an area where you're looking at it as like, well, I failed, period. And I go back into the same pattern that I always do. Instead, a way that we could approach this is, okay, well, what did I do wrong? Like, where did things go wrong that caused me to, like, cause the chain of events to unfold the way they did? And so one thing that you might think is, well, I went into dinner absolutely starving. So I had no willpower because I was starving, like I wanted food. So what's something that I can try next weekend to try to overcome that obstacle that I just faced? Well, maybe before I go to dinner, I'm gonna make sure that I drink, you know, a liter of water, and I'm gonna make sure that I eat something high in protein and maybe like a 300 calorie meal. That way when I do go into dinner, I'm not just gonna be ravenous and shoving my face with everything. You can see how like I can either look at it as, well, I failed completely and screw it, or we look at it as a learning opportunity to say, well, what can I maybe try next time?
Yep.
And maybe you try it and it sucks.
Yeah.
But then you just collect data
But you
along
just
the way.
keep going. That was something for me, and like that real life example was something for me of every single weekend. It was kind of getting off of work, like you're exhausted and you just kind of are like, well, I'm tired and I didn't really eat today, so I'm just gonna have pizza or whatever, and like it doesn't really matter. But then like you said, like it does bleed into the weekend, and it's something where for years this was happening. And so if you're someone where it's like, there's something that always kind of pulls you off, whether it's the weekend or whatever it is, assess it, like write it down, kind of figure out like, okay, this usually happens. Now how can I make it better? Like what can I do differently? And like Jess said, like you might fail at that, but then you're gonna be like, okay, well that didn't work, and then let me try this. That might not work. Let me try this, and then you finally figure out what works for you, and you're like, that's it. Like that's gonna keep me on track.
That's like really the biggest thing, is just stop looking at failure as like it's done and the opportunity is finished.
Just embrace it.
Embrace it, learn from it. Like you wouldn't, if you were constantly failing at something, I wouldn't look at you and just be like, just fucking give up. You
I know.
Suck,
well, you think about like if you have kids and your kid is trying to stop crawling and start walking, after like the fifth failure, like when the kid falls down, you wouldn't be like, that's it, like I'm not gonna help you.
He's not
like,
gonna
you're on
walk
your
ever.
own. And we'd all be like crawling around as like adult humans.
Animals, yeah.
You're not. Like we don't crawl as humans. Like, well, most people don't. But I don't know. There might be some people who are weird. I don't know.
You have hair in your mouth again. But yes, I completely agree. You wouldn't tell your kids you fail, you suck, you might as well just give up. You wouldn't tell your best friend or your sister you fail, you suck, you should just give up. You would probably work through it with them and be like, well, where do you struggle? Like, what's hard for you? Have you thought about trying this? Take that logic and apply it to yourself, and you'll start to realize like failure isn't as bad as you think it is. Let's try to normalize it and look for ways every day that we can fail, because that just means that we're learning and growing and evolving.
I love that. Cool. Good job.
Thanks. Button.